Hi, I'm Gan Nunnally with George Nunnally Chevrolet.
Yeah, we all know Gan, and I'm Aaron Peters with Northwest Arkansas Live. Today we're going to get together for actually a little history tour, because you may not know this, but on top of running one of the top car dealerships in the state, Gan is a history buff. Why is that?
Oh, I just love history, and there's so much of it around here, Aaron. There's a lot going on.
Right here in Northwest Arkansas, we could probably get to it on a tank full on a couple of your trucks.
Oh, exactly. With the great gas mileage we get with Chevrolet and those Ice Trails editions, I mean, we can get everywhere.
I like what you did there. Let's go find some new roads.
Again, let's do it.
Pulling out of Nunnally Chevrolet. Gan, where are we going to go today?
Well, right now we're going to go back to March 4th, 1862. We're headed to Pea Ridge, to the battlefield, and we're going to learn a little bit about the Civil War in the area. I mean, there were a lot of brave things going on at that time, early in the war. That's early in the war. And with the sharecroppers over in the Delta, music, I mean, rock and roll started here in Arkansas. I mean, there's some real incredible events that we need to be aware of. My family's been in the state since it was formed in 1836, and there's a lot of these stories I never knew about.
Wow. 1836, you said?
1836, Arkansas became a state, and then it was just 24 years later the Civil War started. It really tested Arkansas at that time. We lost about a quarter of our population during the war.
During the Civil War?
During the Civil War. Wasn't a lot of folks here. We were the western boundary of the country, and we lost a lot of population.
Wow.
Men, women, and children. Just as the men left, with Arkansas, we weren't one of the strategic locations for the Confederacy, so they pulled all of our boys out of Arkansas and sent them east of the Mississippi. And they fought across some of the other major battles. They joined the Army of Tennessee, who they were attached to. So they were in Vicksburg, fought of course Shiloh, and over onto the East Coast by the end of the war.
Pea Ridge National Military Park, United States Department of the Interior. This is a lot bigger than I anticipated, actually.
It is. It's one of the larger parks. They do a great job with it, and they've got a lot of the battlefield that's here that is preserved. You know, growing up around here, those are great little day trips Mom would take us on in the summers, but there's a lot of history there beyond just those 2 days in March of 1862.
So this is so cool. My first time here again. If you look back behind us, you can see the battlefield, and it is the quintessential, like off a movie battlefield. You can see the lines. It's got plenty of space. You can almost imagine the two armies converging right here. And just to think that 6,000 people died in 2 days here, it just kind of blows me away.
Oh, it really does. You know, this grounds, this was American fighting Americans. That's what this was. This really, you can kind of start the Civil War story when Abraham Lincoln was elected president.
Oh, wow, yeah.
South Carolina was the first state to go, and that's where it actually started, at Fort Sumter there in South Carolina. And from there, as the other states kept dropping out of the Union, kept seceding from the Union, it got down to Arkansas. Arkansas is on the western part of the United States. We're right up adjacent to the Indian Territory. So we're the West.
Right.
So there's a lot of towns that skirmishes were all over this area. But with Pea Ridge, with this battlefield, the way it's preserved, it's like it was on that day on March 7th and 8th in 1862. This was an early battle in the war.
Yeah, without the development, it's so preserved, and one of the best preserved battlefields that there are from the Civil War.
Oh, it absolutely is. A wonderful place. There's biking trails, walking trails. There's so many things you can do here and learn about the history of our area and the history of our country. This was, like I said, a very important battle with the Civil War. It's the largest one west of the Mississippi. With this battle, with the Union winning, it helped solidify Missouri to go Union. And it started because of Missouri. Sterling Price was in Missouri. When they were going to stay neutral, Sterling Price wanted to join the Confederacy. So he put an army together, and he started marching against his home, Missouri. And Missouri was able to push him back down into southwest Missouri. Arkansas was worried that the battle may fall into Arkansas, so they started organizing troops from around the state to come up here. They organized at Bentonville, they organized at Rogers, and then came up from the River Valley as well. You know, one of the amazing things here is Native Americans did fight in battle. They fought for the Confederacy. There were some for Union and Confederate, both. In Pea Ridge, the Cherokee group under Stan Waite got here, and Stan Waite was a general. He was the only Native American general on either side during the war.
Wow.
So he was here with Albert Pike, attached with him, General
Fighting
Pike.
for the Confederacy.
Fighting for the Confederacy. They were here, they did a great job. They overtook some Union cannons and helped kind of sway the battle for a while. We couldn't get any more of the Confederates to come to their aid to hold the cannons, and the Union took them back, and that swung the tide of the battle somewhat as well. Okay. There's a lot of depictions of the battle that shows the Indians in full headdress and buckskins and bows and arrows. That's not how it was at all. That didn't happen that way. The weapon a lot of them had were shotguns, and that's close range.
Close range, that's right.
Shotguns and rifles, they're hunting guns. They're what they used to feed their families with. That's what they began the war with.
That's crazy. So even though the Battle of Pea Ridge was early in the Civil War, it was a huge swing battle because it decided the fate of Missouri staying with the Union as opposed to succeeding.
Right, that's true, and it also was the Arkansas as well. So what happened here at this battle, the Union wins, and when they win, they pull the Confederates out at that point out of Arkansas.
Right.
So once Pea Ridge is over, it opens the state of Arkansas up for the Union to march through, really with light skirmishes across Arkansas. So as they push back, Arkansas has to move their capital first from Little Rock to Hot Springs, and then from Hot Springs down to Washington, Arkansas. And it made an impact on a lot of things. And that big deal, when they took Helena, they controlled the Mississippi River out west. And as they did that, that cut the supply lines for the Confederates at Vicksburg, and also led to the fall of Vicksburg as well.
So had the Confederacy won the Battle of Pea Ridge, Missouri might have succeeded.
Correct.
And everything may have been different.
It
so
really
Pea Ridge, hey, go Union, go Pea Ridge, right?
Oh yeah, this was a big point for the Union.
All right, we should head over to Leetown next.
All right, let's go.
Let's check it out. Arriving at Leetown now, Gan, there's no structures left here, but some crazy cool history in terms of the two armies maybe taking care of injured together here and families fighting against each other here.
Well, there really is. That's what we saw against the Civil War completely. I mean, it was Americans fighting Americans is what it was. There's an instance here at Pea Ridge, one of the generals at Pea Ridge, one of the Confederate generals, his brother was a Union general.
Gotta be kidding.
The parents with a child that's a general on each side. These men went to school together. The career Army guys went to West Point. They went to school together. They served with each other up to this point. And again, this is early in the war, so these guys have been hanging out recently together. Here at Leetown, the doctors were stationed here. So any wounded from either side, Union or Confederate, were brought here.
I don't think people realize that either, that they would actually be treated together. They may have injured each other,
right, and
then being treated together. And they might be brothers.
Oh yeah, it's hard to think in anything we think of a conflict or a battle or a war today that happening. And but that's exactly what happened during the Civil War all across it, not just here. But sometimes they were limited with the surgeons that they had, and they took care of both sides as they came in.
But before we leave this area, there's one more critical stop we got to make.
We really do. It's up at Elkhorn Tavern. Great location, a restored tavern up there. It's an old stagecoach stop as well for Butterfield Stagecoach. But the armies split. The Confederate Army split, Van Dorn split them. They'd been strung out along the road anyway, so they had one contingent come here to Leetown for the battle here, and then the other one circled around behind and came down the Springfield Road from Springfield, Missouri, and locked in behind Elkhorn Tavern.
Let's head there.
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. All right, so behind us now is Elkhorn Tavern, and that played a big role for so many reasons, not just here in Pea Ridge, but for the entire battle, for the entire war.
Oh, it really did. This was the main route from St. Louis to Fort Smith.
Okay.
So the road coming through here was important. It was vital for supplies for everybody. And this was why this was such a strategic point to have. It was so strategic that 25 years before, in 1837, this is where the Cherokee Trail of Tears came through. Over 11,000 Cherokee came through here on the way to the Indian Territory.
And that was 25 years before the Civil War.
Before the Civil War. At that time, this was just a little cabin out here. And it was, this recreation of this building was put up years ago, but it's a replica of what was here during the Civil War. It was also the Butterfield stagecoach line stopped here too. But if you can imagine, you know, from St. Louis to Fort Smith, that's where we go down 44 now, turn down, you know, 49 and come home. Right now this shot directly from St. Louis, so this was a straight shot and in a very important supply road. But the history that's here from the Trail of Tears on through with the Civil War battles, there's some great things around here. Of course, there's a few cemeteries here in this area and a few monuments to the war.
And you mentioned one word in all of that, the word supply. You know, if you didn't have that, you were a dead man walking. And so that's why this tavern was so important, because you get geared up, get your supplies, and move forward.
Right, it was getting people in and out of the area. This was very strategic for the whole thing, for the whole community, not just for the war effort.
Right, there's a big piece to this Civil War puzzle right here.
Right here, this is important. If you're going to be here at this park, walk, ride your bikes, drive your ice trails, truck, whatever you need to do, but get here and make sure you see this while you're in the park.
I want to see a real cannon though. Can we go see one of those next?
Let's go see a cannon.
All right, let's go see a cannon. All right, so now we're by one of the actual Civil War cannons, and it's bigger and heavier than I thought, first of all, but secondly, what part did they play in conjunction with the Native Americans and in this particular spot of the battle?
What happened along the road up here, we had 7,000 Confederates coming through. There were 600 Union soldiers here with cannons. And the 600 Union soldiers fire upon the 7,000 Confederates. So just simple math works here. 3,000 cavalrymen from Texas and Arkansas pushed the Iowa cavalrymen back into the woods here. The 2 regiments of Cherokees were able to take the cannons, and no easy task for them firing right into those cannons. So they went to the cannons and they took the cannons over.
Well, it just goes to show how difficult it must be to get everybody organized, get your weapons and equipment organized, and try to actually fight a battle out here. Because once you really get out here and stand out here, you're in the middle of nowhere. I mean,
you are. At that time, they're standing in the wheat fields where they're standing at. So they're Mr. Foster's wheat field here, and they see some Confederates coming. They turn the guns on them, start firing. 600 fire on 7,000 at this location.
It's bad math.
That is bad math.
If you're the Union.
That's right.
Let's make our next stop.
Oh, let's do it.
So as we leave Pea Ridge and head to Tontitown, this is another great example of a historical place in our area. Tontitown has a lot of history.
Well, it really does. It's incredible to drive through it. You look at another small Ozark town, but it's not. There's a huge history here.
Yeah, and it has more to do with our growth than people realize, because it opened a lot of gates for the Italians. It opened a lot of gates for some industry around here and some opportunity.
Well, it really did. I don't think they get enough credit for what they did for our area. And because of them, this area is a whole lot better.
And when we get there, we're going to talk about how many years the Tontitown Grape Festival has been going on, because it's been a lot.
Oh, exactly. I want some homemade spaghetti right now.
I'll take the wine, and then we'll trade. Gan, our stop now, Tontitown. This is true tailgating right here.
Oh, it is, right here on top of it. Perfect for it.
But I love this location because it's so historical. I mean, first of all, we got the Grape Festival, but it all starts with the Italians coming to America, and this is some of the first ones that were here.
They got up here in the Ozarks. Father Bandini had been through here before, and it reminded him of northern Italy. So they came up here and started this community, and it's incredible what they've done.
Yeah, they came up with, for smaller farms, equipment that they were used to, gave themselves a chance to succeed up here because sharecropping wasn't working out. And then, but in 1889 is when it was founded. They had the picnic that year, which is now
the Tontitown Grape Festival.
For 130 years, they've had a Tontitown Grape Festival here. That's amazing.
Oh, it is. It's wonderful. It's great to come down here and do that. The homemade spaghetti, man, that's the key to the whole thing, is to come down for that spaghetti. And living up here, growing up here, make sure we came here every year to do that.
Yeah, and the wineries here, of course, the history here. This is another very worthwhile stop if you're making historical stops in our area.
You are. If you're coming through here, you got to know the history. Another big thing about Tontitown's the name itself. They chose that name. They named after Henry de Tonti, who was an explorer with LaSalle in the 1600s.
Wow.
They came up the Mississippi and on through the Arkansas River. They founded Arkansas Post, which would become the capital of Arkansas. And so there's a lot riding on that when you come in. You got a town that's got to live up to something, and they absolutely did with their grapes, their apples, what all they've done here. Like I said, it was a model they used for immigration across the world.
Wow, the Tonti, and then hundreds of years later, we have Tontitown.
Yes, exactly.
All right, well, what's our next stop?
Let's go right up the road here. We'll head down and go up 59 and end up right in Gravette, Arkansas.
All right, let's do it. So we didn't get our fill of wine or spaghetti. That's on our next trip. But as we leave Tontitown and head to where now?
We're heading to Gravette.
Okay.
And I've got a big surprise there.
Big surprise.
It's a huge secret for Northwest Arkansas, it seems like. Growing up here, I've heard this name before, but didn't really know what this man accomplished, and I can't wait to tell you about it.
So we got a surprise waiting for us in Gravette. We'll see when we get there. Well, we talked about it in the truck coming over here. Again, our last stop, Gravette, Arkansas. Very historic place behind us, the Kinley House. Field Kinley was a famous aviator that maybe not a lot of people know about, and they should.
Oh, they really should. With Kinley being here from Northwest Arkansas, he was one of the first fighter pilots that America ever had.
That's crazy.
After the American unit was formed, the 148th Aero Squadron, he was commander of it. He got the first kill, so he's got the first enemy plane shot down of any American ever.
Well, and that was before there was an Air Force, correct?
That's correct. It was for the Air Force. He signed up to be in the infantry, actually.
Oh my God.
Didn't much like the infantry training, so he jumped in and tried this new thing out, and he adapted to it really well.
It's fascinating to me in terms of the city of Gravette, how lucky they are to have been able to retain some of the unbelievable artifacts that are in the museum when it comes to Field Kinley, and some of the awards and the pictures, and really cool stuff inside.
Well, there really is. They've got a pair of his binoculars that he used during World War I.
Yeah.
That's incredible to have that. Some photographs. We're going to talk about his funeral here in a little bit, but it's one of the largest Northwest Arkansas has ever seen. Captain Kinley, he is Captain America.
Captain America, I love it. And being able to get the Kinley house behind us, a place where he stayed, and then the city was able to recover it and make it a historical spot. You know, that to me, that again is pretty rare for them to be able to retain that, just the house itself.
Well, it really is to have that. To have these artifacts, you can touch history. You can see here, you can touch history, and to keep that history alive for generations to come is just incredible.
And if you think about the bravery that it takes to get into a plane at the technology level that they were at, you know, I mean, there ain't no parachutes, there's no laser sights, you know, there's no radar. It's you, binoculars, and a machine gun fixed to the wing. I mean, to me, it's crazy how brave that must have been to do that.
But it's amazing that the mentality of these guys, the strength, the courage, just incredible to me that what these men went through to establish the freedoms we have today.
Right,
the democracy across the world.
To make the sacrifices for our freedoms today is one great lesson. And another lesson on a smaller scale is how much history there is in Northwest Arkansas. And this has been an amazing tour, and what a way to end it. So thank you very much for this.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot more to see in Northwest Arkansas.
Well, let's find some new roads.
Again.